What's going on, everybody? It's Ricky with Videohomicide, back with another movie recommendation. Today, we're going to go back to the year of our Lord, 2007, and talk about a movie I've heard about a lot, heard good things. The Poughkeepsie tapes, directed by John Eric Dowdle, who, of course, also directed Devil, which I love, which takes place in an elevator shaft. Not the whole movie, but a majority of the film. He did Quarantine, which was the remake of Wreck, which was a Spanish film. And then he did this movie called As Above, So Below, which I want to watch, like, now almost. It's about it's a found footage film presented, it's a documentary crew's experience exploring the catacombs of Paris, and was loosely based on the 9 Circles of Hell. So I'm into stuff like that. I'm into, what I've seen with Poughkeepsie tape. So let's get into that movie a little bit. If you haven't seen it, I would say it like this. It's sort of like August Underground meets Blair Witch with the supernatural shit taken out. And maybe not so much Blair Witch, but more like Curse of the Blair Witch, like one of those documentaries. It's presented as a documentary with the tapes being the centerpiece that wrap around, that tie up the story. So basically there's this house in Poughkeepsie, New York, where all these tapes were found, all numbered. There was like 2,000 of them or some shit. And they're all, snuff films, basically. And it's cool because the guy that was, given the job to look at all the films and log all the films and shit, all the tapes, he said that his wife, he brought some tapes home to log some stuff, do work at home, and his wife seen some, and she wouldn't let him touch her for, a year after that. It's so violent and visceral and sexual and stuff. Now, this movie, earlier when I said that it's kind of like August Underground, sure, it's kind of like, it's nowhere near the terms of special effects insanity, you know what I mean? We're not going to see a nipple cut off or anything like that. We are going to see some very fucking just weird shit happening. I'll say this, the mask that the guy wears, the killer wears this mask. It's sort of like a plague doctor mask in a way, but there's a scene where he has this girl, up on, with her arms bound and she's stretched up like that. And in the foreground, the background is sort of a majority of the frame. And the killer comes in, but he's crawling, and he has the mask, he has his mask on, but another mask on top. So when he's crawling, it looks like the head is pointing straight out. It was fucking weird, but really enjoyed that. I loved how, again, with the guy that logged all the tapes, he has this scene where he's in front of this huge table of tapes, and it sort of zooms out, and you're exposed to thousands of these tapes, and he goes, from here, so 70% of them are just on one victim. So there's 1,500 tapes just on one victim who he brainwashed for 10 years and basically made her think she was his slave and he was the master. And when she finally escaped or was found, she was found in horrendous condition. Her hand was halfway cut off. She was bruised up, all fucked up. But she had that, I think it's called Stockholm syndrome, where you fall in love with your captor, and that happened with her. And they do an interview with her, and she's basically I don't know what you want me to say. I don't know what you want me to say. She's been so, what's the word called? She's been so used and fucked up in the head that's her normal. She thinks she needs permission to even think, which is crazy. And then it's revealed that a few weeks later she killed herself, which is insane. But total spoiler alert, with the Poughkeepsie tapes, the opening scene is really the ending. It's sort of because I believe the girl's name was Dermsey, something, Julia Dermsey or some shit like that, but her grave is robbed. And the beginning of the film, there's the guy working the camera, POV style, looks at the grave that's open, and then he sets the camera down, and then you hear a truck start up, and then the body's ripped out of the casket. It's fucking hardcore. And then that you find out who that was at the end of the film. I really liked it. I thought it had a lot of moments that I really thought were badass and creepy. There was a scene where the guy working the camera, POV style, these 2 little Girl Scout fucking cookie sellers come to his house, and there's a very tense moment. You don't know what's going to happen, right? And yeah, there's a few moments like that. There's a scene where there's a woman whose car's broke down on the side of the road. He picks her up. not saying he's a cop, and she sort of like goes officer, calls him officer, and then she gets in the car. It's sort of like decked out like a cop car, but it's unmarked. She gets into this car, and he's like, why'd you call me officer, and this and that, and he says like he's gonna rape her and all this, and she's like, okay, just don't kill me, and he's like, you're gonna let me rape you, and she's like, yeah, and then he's just like, he's like not having it, basically. It's crazy. Like, the killer set up this other person as to be like the I believe they call it like the River Shore Strangler, or the River Shore Killer, or some shit like that. And he frames this police officer somehow, and the police officer is executed, and then like immediately after it's found out that the killer's still at large, and like the accused guy, his son is like, throughout the documentary from here to like, not too much, but given his point of view and shit like that. It's very well put together. It is like a good, I would pair this with Blair Witch Project as a double feature, like no problem. I would, I would pair this with Curse of the Blair Witch. If you wanted to get real crazy, Curse of the Blair Witch, Poughkeepsie Tapes, August Underground, all in one night. That is like the found footage trifecta for me, because I've seen not like too much, but I've seen a decent amount of found footage it kind of turned me off of it. But then every once in a while you get a film like August Underground, you get a film like Poughkeepsie Tapes, and so on and so forth. And I'm looking forward to checking out this director's other films, especially that as the one about the Paris catacombs. I just think that's interesting. I love catacombs, underground tunnels, all that kind of shit. I've always been really interested in, so that should be cool. This is like going to reference a really shitty movie, but one thing I found cool about the movie The Nun from back in the day, a couple years ago, quite a few years ago probably by now, but there was like that one hallway or doorway in the church that says like God ends here. Like shit like that I just always found really creepy and cool. So like hidden basement compartments and shit, always really ripe with good quality stuff that I'm interested in. So if you haven't seen Poughkeepsie Tapes, definitely check it out. If you are a fan of Blair Witch, I know Blair Witch isn't for everybody, but the older I get, when I was a kid and I seen it, I didn't understand it, so I just deemed it as shit. Everyone I knew, even my dad, like was like, no, this movie sucks. And like now I'm like, dude, like we need to watch the Blair Witch. And actually we did watch it maybe a year or two ago. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's a pretty good fucking movie. And it's like, yeah, because you're looking at it at because Blair Witch came out in, I believe, 99, and it's so unlike the type of shit that was coming out at the time. Think of the horror like scene at the time. That was totally not a brand new concept, but like a brand new flavor in that era. And it really set the tone for what could be done with a small budget. And I think Poughkeepsie Tapes couldn't have cost that much. Like there's, I don't know, maybe obviously more than Blair Witch, because there's more production, there's more people involved and shit like that. But I had a really good time with it. I think that my favorite scene in the whole film was probably like the opening part that was just strictly documentary, like minus the video footage, because I liked how there was like missing tapes. Like later on they're like, yeah, there's like 2,500 tapes, but there's like 7 missing, and they're like, what could be on those 7 tapes? Like something so fucked up that he wanted to keep for himself or whatever it was. Because in terms of like what he does in the tapes, like he cuts some throats, he strangles, and like he puts a girl's head underwater. It's not like, it's not like your Fred Vogel films, you know what I'm saying? But it is still fun. It is still good. Highly recommended. So if you've not, definitely check out Poughkeepsie Tapes. And with that being said, make sure you leave a 666 in the comments. And adios.